Okay guys, picture this field back in 1961. My grandpa, out here, setting a corner post by hand. A plain wooden pole, looks like any other post going into the earth. But what he did then, just out of sight, was no accident. He buried a simple glass bottle right beside it. That one weird step, a trick passed down through generations, made that post last longer than any of us expected. So yeah, that bottle is part of the story, but it's not the whole secret. Think about it for a second. How long do your fence posts usually last? If you're lucky, you get 15, maybe 20 years before they start to wobble and get soft at the base. But this post right here, is still going strong after more than 60 years. So what's the difference? Why does one post turn to mush in a decade while another one lasts a lifetime? According to the old-timers, the problem isn't the post itself. It's what you do to it before it ever touches the dirt. The real enemy is that little 2-inch section right at ground level. It's always getting wet, then drying out, which is the perfect recipe for fungus to just eat the wood away. You might think modern, pressure-treated wood solves this. But for a long time, that green lumber was packed with arsenic. It got so bad the EPA had to pull it from home use because it was leaking into the soil. The Amish farmers knew a better way. A simple, smarter method using fire, oil, and tar. And that's the real secret we're digging into today. Okay, so to understand why the Amish solution works so well, you first have to understand what's actually killing your fence posts. And it's not what most people think. It all comes down to that one tiny spot, that little 2-inch section right where the post comes out of the ground. That's the kill zone. Think of a wooden post like a giant straw. The end that's buried in the dirt is constantly sucking up moisture from the soil. At the same time, you've got rain, snow, and dew hitting the post from above. So you've got water coming up and water coming down. And where do they meet? Right at the ground line. That little 2-inch section becomes the perfect storm. It's the one spot on the entire post that almost never gets a chance to fully dry out. It's always damp. And that dampness is basically a dinner bell for fungus. The soil is full of these tiny organisms, just waiting for a meal. They don't actually eat the wood itself. What they're really after are the sugars locked inside the wood fibers. For them, that damp, 2-inch section is an all-you-can-eat buffet. They just start munching away, year after year, slowly breaking down those fibers until that once solid post turns into soft, crumbly mush. This is why the top of the post, which gets to dry out in the sun and wind, stays perfectly fine. It's also why the part of the post buried deep underground, where there's less oxygen for the fungus to thrive, often stays solid, too. It's just that one critical spot where moisture, oxygen, and fungus all come together to destroy the wood. And this is where the modern solutions really missed the mark. For decades, the answer was that green pressure-treated lumber. But to fight the rot, they pumped it full of poison. We're talking about wood that was roughly 20% arsenic by weight. It got so bad that when scientists took soil samples near old fence lines made with this stuff, they found arsenic levels 10 to 20 times higher than normal. The wood was literally poisoning the ground around it. That's why the old farmers knew they needed a better way. A way to protect that critical 2-inch spot without poisoning everything else. They understood the real enemy wasn't just time. It was a combination of water and fungus. And their solution was designed to defeat both. So you'd think, with all our modern technology, we'd have this simple problem solved by now. But the crazy thing is, most of our so-called fixes actually make the problem worse. You see it everywhere. A fence that's only 15 or 20 years old, and the posts are already wobbly. They're leaning over, or when you push on them, they feel soft and spongy right at the base. One Amish farmer I read about, a guy who's been doing this his whole life, says the problem isn't the wood. It's what people fail to do before that post ever touches the dirt. We basically set them up to fail from the very first day. And a lot of these mistakes are things people do thinking they're helping. It all starts at the bottom of the post hole. Most of us just dig a hole, drop the post in, and start shoveling. But we're forgetting about gravity. When it rains, all that water soaks into the ground. And where does it end up? It pools right at the bottom of your post hole, pressed up against the raw, cut end of the wood. That end grain is like the top of a straw. It just sits there in that puddle and sucks up every last drop of moisture. As one farmer described it, it acts just like a wet sponge. The post is literally drinking the water that will eventually kill it. Okay, so that's mistake number one, down at the bottom. The next one happens right at the surface, in that critical 2-inch kill zone. A lot of people will try to mound dirt or gravel around the post. But if you don't do it just right, you can accidentally create a little hollow, like a tiny moat right around the wood, or they'll pack it down flat. Either way, when it rains, that spot becomes a puddle. It holds water right up against the post, keeping it constantly damp. You've basically built the fungus a private swimming pool, right at the spot where the post is most vulnerable. It's the exact opposite of what you want to do. But the final mistake is the one almost nobody thinks about. It's the very top of the post. If you leave the top flat and unsealed, you've left a giant, gaping doorway open for rainwater. The water hits that flat top, it soaks into the exposed grain, and it starts traveling down the inside of the post. So you can have a post that looks totally solid on the outside, maybe even has a good coat of stain on it. But secretly, it's rotting away from the inside out. All that water gets trapped in the core with no way to escape, slowly turning the heartwood into mush. You see the pattern here? All these common methods, the way we dig the hole, the way we fill it, the way we finish the top, they actually help the fungus and the moisture. They end up trapping water against the wood instead of shedding it away. It proves that this isn't a problem you can solve with just a tougher wood or a stronger chemical. You have to fundamentally change how you put that post in the ground to begin with. You have to build a system that actively defeats water. And that is the secret the Amish figured out generations ago. Alright, so what does this Amish system actually look like? How do they build a fence post that can outlast the person who put it in? It's not one single trick. It's a series of simple, brilliant steps that attack the problem from every angle. First, they start at the very bottom of the hole. They know that a flat-bottomed hole turns into a puddle, and that the end of the post will act like a straw, sucking that water right up. So, they don't let the post touch the dirt. Before the post ever goes in, they throw a few inches of gravel down at the bottom. This creates a drainage field. When water seeps down, it flows into the gaps between the rocks and drains away, instead of pooling up against the wood. That simple layer of stone completely solves the wet sponge problem. Okay, that handles the bottom. But the next step is where the real genius, and that buried bottle, comes in. This is how they protect that 2-inch kill zone at ground level. After they put the post on top of the gravel, they start filling the hole. But they don't just use dirt. They mix in rocks, gravel, and sometimes broken pieces of glass or even an old bottle. Now, that bottle isn't magic. It's a tool. Think about how water moves through soil. It creeps and spreads, wicking from one dirt particle to the next, always trying to find a way to get to that wood.